Second gear problem on Suzuki RF motorcycles. In fact, not only on RFs, also on GSXR models, that's 750W and 1100. Second gear slippage. To fix it, you've got to take the engine out of the frame. And then you've got to split the engine in half to get access to the gearbox. This is what I'm going to be doing in this video. So this is the RF600 motor, but the way you get the gearbox out is pretty much the same as in a 900, so you can do 6, you can do 9 as well. Okay, now, so I'm going to start from removing the signal generator's cover. Gentle mallet tap should release it. There we go. Gasket looks still pretty good. Now I'm going to remove the cover for the clutch. Same thing, just a tap with the mallet and this should come off. There we go, clutch cover removed. Gasket in really lovely condition, perfectly reusable. For the signal generator's cover, bolts are the same length, so it doesn't really matter how you keep them. Now, different case for the clutch cover. Some of those bolts are different lengths, so make sure you keep them in exact order. You take them out from somewhere, put it in the same place. Okay, to remove the clutch pressure plate and all the plates, you're going to have to use a 10mm socket or a spanner, and I'm afraid a small breaker bar will be necessary here. Alright, just to make it a bit quicker, I'm going to use my electric screwdriver. Okay, here we have it, your springs and bolts. Right, here we have it. We can now remove the pressure plate, but before I do it, so this is, I would say, a typical standard clutch assembly with pressure plate and bolt and springs around it. In some models of RF 900s, and I think this is a 94 model, the first release, this is going to look a bit different. So what you're going to have is going to be a clutch assembly where you've got a snap ring that needs to be removed. After removing the snap ring, you'll be able to take the pressure plate off, and then underneath it there's going to be a big old nut. I think it's 50mm nut, which you need to remove to get the plates off. And for that job you're going to need a nut buster or a big old breaker bar and the engine still in the frame. So ideally you do that when the engine is in the frame for that particular model. Alright, so let's remove the pressure plate. So you're going to have that bit inside, so don't lose it. Okay, so to remove the clutch sleeve hub, you're going to have to remove this nut here. This is a 32mm nut. To do that, there's two ways to go about it. You can do it with the engine still in the frame of your motorcycle, using a breaker bar and clutch holding tool. Or you can also use a nut buster, which is the way I'm going to do because it's a lot quicker. But before you do that, there's going to be a securing washer here, which is bent. Just up there, you see this? So this is bent here, and that won't allow this nut to be unscrewed. So you've got to flatten it out. Alright, once you've got this flat, then you're going to be able to remove this nut. So let's just imagine you still have your engine in your motorcycle. What we'll do is you would remove just a couple of plates. So let's say one steel and one friction plate. Okay, and that will allow you to put your clutch holding tool inside to get a good grip. So here it is, that's your clutch holding tool. You can get this on eBay for about, I don't know, £12 or something. So you would put it in, so it gets a nice grab. And then you would put your brake bar in here, you would loosen up this nut, and then you take the nut off and you're good to go. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a nut buster. There we go, nut comes off. Okay, you're now removing this crush washer, securing washer. As you can see, this part here was bent before, which kept the nut in secured position. Then you're going to have two washers. Clutch, so we've got the clutch sleeve hub removed with some of the steels and the friction plate still in. And just behind it there's going to be a thick washer, so keep it there. In fact, I'll put it there for a moment. Okay, let's now remove this washer here. Okay, to remove the primary driven gear, you're going to have to remove this spacer here and the bearings. This here, the thicker part, is just a tube spacer, and around it you've got the needle bearings. So those two bits have to be removed in order to remove the primary driven gear. Okay, so with the engine in that particular position, it might be a bit difficult to remove the spacer and the needle bearings. So let's lower it a bit. Okay. And if you wiggle it a couple of times, you will actually see the bearings here. So I can now grab them. So this is a set of our needle bearings. Okay, and then here you're going to have this tube spacer, which comes out nicely as well. Okay, now removal of the primary gear will be very easy. There we go. Came out nicely and easily. Let's put it away. Okay, so now you've got to remove the oil pump driven gear, that sprocket here, and to do that you've got to remove the circlip. Can you see this? Hopefully you can. And with the help of those, you'll be able to remove it. There we go, that's the circlip removed. And take the gear out. Right man, so now we're going to have to unscrew this one, or that sucker. And that's a bit of a job. I wish you could luck with using a normal screwdriver. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this breaker bar with this end bit. There we go. So now let's just grab a screwdriver, get those suckers off. Take this brace off. Okay, so I've turned the engine now. So this is our sump oil filter here, as you can see. That's been already loosened up, so let's get this off. After taking the oil filter off, we need to remove this nut here, and this is again a 32 mil, so you can use a breaker bar. However, if you have something like this, by all means, go ahead and use it. Ta-da! All that has to come off. Okay, so removing the sump. So to do that, you're going to need a tiny little 8mm spanner. So get all these bolts loosened up. The torque here isn't horrendous, so that should go fairly easily. And then you're going to have to remove this tiny little screw over here. And for that you can use I guess this is a 6mm spanner or socket, or just a screwdriver. Comes up nicely. Let's make sure that screw will not get lost. Okay, and there's going to be one more bolt right in the middle here, so let's not forget about that. When it comes to the length of the sump bolt, they're all pretty much the same length. All the outer ones are the same. It's just that middle one which is a bit longer, so you don't have to worry about mixing this up. All you have to remember is the middle one is the longer one, all the other ones are just the same. Let's remove the sump now. Here we have it. Gasket still in lovely condition. Look at this inside. That's not too clean, is it? Okay, we've got all the bolts in, with the longest one in the middle. Let's put it aside. And so now we're going to have to remove this sump oil filter. This is held by 2 screws here. To remove those 2 screws you can use a screwdriver if you're strong enough, or you can use a 10mm spanner or a socket and cover this area here with a rag or something, because if anything drops into this engine, man, you're screwed. So just in case, let's just cover it. Okay, the other one. Now a screwdriver will be just enough. So here we have it. That's our filter removed. Let's keep it aside. There's going to be a little washer here which you can remove for now, and an O-ring as well. So this is where the alternator connects. You've got the cylinders here, as you can see, and the top of the engine there. And now we'll be removing the upper crankcase tightening bolts. So there's going to be 2 bolts here. Then we're removing this one here, and this one here. And as you can see, those are different, so make sure you don't confuse them. Okay, now we're going to have to remove the water pump and neutral switch. So for that job you just need a screwdriver. Neutral switch is held by 2 screws. Another little thing to mention, you see in that neutral switch there's that little bobbin coming out which you can press in. If you remove it just for now, at least that way we won't lose it. So let's keep it aside for a moment. Now removing the water pump assembly. 4 of those will be just screws, which you will be able to remove with a screwdriver. And as you can see already, those are different lengths. So make sure you remember how they go in. And the last one here, we'll need a very thin 10mm socket. Okay. Okay. And let's make sure all our bolts go to the same place. There we go. And that will go back on this here. Now we're going to have to remove this plate here. So what I've done before the video is, you'll see that those bolts are actually secured by this little lip which was securing it. So what you need to do is basically flatten it out, which will allow you to get these off. First one. So now we've got to remove all those bolts here, which will allow us to take this cover off. But before we do that, we've got to remove the cam chain tensioner here, because there's one bolt just underneath it and there is no access to it. So first of all we'll remove this, then we'll remove that, and then, believe it or not, there's going to be one more bolt inside which will still hold the bottom crankcase together with the rest of the engine. Okay, that's loosened up, excellent. Okay, there we go, this is the cam chain tensioner. And now, having this removed, we've got access to this bolt here. Okay. Loosened up. Loosened up. Okay, there's going to be 2 more bolts here, and those are 10mm. I've got them loose before, so it's this one here, and another one here. Let me just magnify it for you. So I'm talking about this one here and this one here. Get those 2 removed. So as you can see, those are different lengths. Okay, so now just give it a tap. And hopefully this will now come out. There we go, we've got the cover off. Now, let's turn it over. So you're going to have to remove this set of gears, and then inside there Let's magnify it. There's going to be one more bolt which needs to be removed, and it's this bolt here. Okay, so we're back on this side of the engine, so now we're going to have to remove some of the crankcase bolts, and let's start from the smaller ones, which are here at the top. This is a 10mm socket. And there's going to be one more just down there, which I got somewhat loose before. Okay. And now when it comes to the bigger ones, they've got number 11 imprinted on them. So it's here, 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 here. It's those and those two in the middle. But all of those bigger ones have to be unscrewed in a sequence. So those are going to be 12mm sockets. So let's grab one of those. The first one you're going to be breaking off is this one here. Okay, so get a solid grip. That one went down. The second one is that bolt here. I actually had to drill those through because they were rounded off. And number 3 is this one here. And number 4 is this one here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Then your number 5 is this one here. Then your number 6 is this one here. Then your number 7 is this one here. Okay. Then your number 8 is that one here. Then your number 9 will be that one here. Okay. Your number 10 is going to be that one. Number 11 is going to be that one here. And your last one, number 12, is this one here. And what's really cool is you actually have numbers stamped on the case, so there is no way to go wrong about it. So you will actually see number 1 here. Okay, you've got no numbers here, but service manual will tell you that. So this is your number 1. This is number 2. You've got number 3 here, just below the bolt. That's your number 4. Then you've got number 5. You've got this number printed here. Then you've got 6 here. Your 7 here. Your 8 there. Then you've got your 9 here. Then you've got your 10 here. Then you've got 11 and 12. Now we've got to remove that bolt here, and that's a 10mm. Okay, that went pretty easily. So I've got all of them removed and put in the cardboard like this, so I know exactly which one goes where. Alright, now the smaller bolts, they've already been loosened up, so I can just simply take them off. there's one more big one at the bottom here. So as you can see, they are different lengths, so make sure they are in order. Okay, so if you have a look, there's going to be a line here. So if you follow that line, this is where the cases meet. So once again, we've got this line here, and as you can see, this already starts separating. But I'm gonna have to find a place. Maybe this is gonna be a good one. Just giving it a couple of gentle taps. You see this gap here? Okay, so it's basically the gasket holding it. So once again, a couple of taps with the screwdriver. Okay. Getting closer and closer.
A few moments later.
There we go. Okay, so here we have it, guys. So as you can see, this is your gearbox area. You've got the shift forks here. So let's move it away. Here we have it, the actual gearbox with all the cogs, and this is where the problem normally sits. Obviously I forgot to remove the sprocket, but you know, I can do it now. And by doing that, you can simply remove the gearbox by simply pulling it away. So here we have first set of gears, and here we have your second set of gears. So this is the RF600 gearbox, and as you can see, you've got two shafts here. Shaft number 1, shaft number 2, and you've got two sets of gears on those two shafts. So you've got the bigger gears and the smaller gears. So the shaft with the bigger gears, this here, those are your driven gears, and the one with the smaller gears here are your drive gears. And basically the deal with damage on those cogs, on those gears, is that you see those dogs here, none of them are rounded off, they look pretty solid. So that already tells you that's pretty good. Then we've got those here, and those look pretty good as well. So if you take this out, you're going to have another set of dogs just inside there, and look at those there. Difficult to show, but you can tell as well that really none of them is rounded off. All of them look pretty good. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this all apart. So let's start from this side here. This is going to be your needle bearings. So simply pull this off. There's going to be your needle bearings here with this little washer. So keep this in exactly the same position as it comes out. Then you're going to have this gear here. So you take this off and you put this there. Then you're going to have this ring, and have a look. There's going to be a little hole here, and that hole provides the oil, and as you can see inside there, there's going to be a little groove in this ring, and this is how oil travels in that groove. So anyway, let's keep this inside because that goes in here. Then on top of that, you're going to have this flat metal washer which goes on that here, and then you've got this gear. And let's have a look. So you see these dogs here, those look pretty damn good. There's zero damage to them, none of them is rounded off or warped, and same here. Pretty solid gear, that looks pretty good. So anyway, this came off like that, so now it goes on it like this here. Now to take these gears off, you're going to have to remove this circlip. So get your circlip pliers. So as you can see, this is a bit of a pain in the ass, and eventually we'll do it so that comes off. So you know that this goes in here, and that way you can remove another gear, and once again let's have a look at this. So you will see some small wear in here, here, and here, but this is still usable. Either way, so what we've got on top of that gear is the washer. So the washer goes on top of the circlip, and then we've got the gear, which has this ring inside, which I'm going to talk about in a second. Let's just remove it first. So this is the gear which we've just examined. So that goes on like that. And then we've got this ring, and have a look. Once again, in this ring there's a little hole, and that provides the oil. So we're going to come back to that in a moment. So this ring goes inside the gear here, and then there's going to be the washer, and this is a very specific washer. There's a couple of washers which look very similar, but that one is different. This one is thick, so look how thick this is. So that one goes in here, and then we've got another gear which will then go on like that. And by the way, that looks not bad too, a little wear but not too much. So that goes in here, and once again we've got the same type of ring with the hole providing the oil. So that goes inside the gear. Then we've got the washer, and that's a thin washer. So this is what I was talking about just a moment ago. The other washer was thick, and this is thin, so it goes in here. And then we've got another circlip. So to remove that gear, you would have to remove this circlip again. So let's do it. Alright, this one came out a lot easier than another one. So this goes on top of that washer here. And so then we've got another gear, and have a look. If I take this out, look at those dogs. Pretty darn good. Zero problems whatsoever. And the other side, same thing. Really solid. No damage. So yeah, there we go. This gear goes on this like that. And then we've got just one more gear and some bearings, but just have a look at this. There's some wear, but no real drama. So here we have it. So that gear goes on that. There we go. Got this on. Then we have the circlip. However, with the circlip, you've got to remember, you're not trying to put the circlip all the way down here. You're only putting it into that groove here. So let's grab it. And make sure it actually goes into the groove. Snapped on. So now it locks this gear in place. Then we have this thin washer. So let's put this on. Thin washer goes on. And then this is going to be important. There's going to be this ring, and this ring has this little hole for the oil. So what's got to happen is you've got to align that hole on the ring with those holes in the shaft, because that provides the oil for the transmission. So what's going to happen is this. You see this? That's what's going to happen. Okay, then you've got the gear that goes on. Then you've got your thick washer. And then same thing, so you've got another ring with a hole. So this has to line up with the holes on the shaft. See this? So that goes on nicely. Then you've got your gear, which goes on like that. Excellent. Then you're going to have another washer, which is going to be the flat thin washer. And then you've got the circlip. And again, the circlip will have to go on. I don't know if you're going to see this or not, but it's going to have to go on all the way down into this groove, just by the washer. Let's just make sure. Now, what's worth mentioning, those circlips, I reckon they should be replaced every time you mess around with them. I don't think they're gonna cost more than a couple of quid, so if you're repairing your gearbox, man, just invest in new ones. I'm just gonna take it all apart. This is my spare engine, so I don't really care, and this is only for demonstrational purposes, but if you're actually working on your gearbox, which will be going back to your bike, just replace it, man. Anyway, so we've got that done. Then we've got another gear, which goes on like that. Then there's going to be the washer. And then we're going to have another ring with this little hole which provides the oil. But in this case, you don't really have to align those two holes together, because, as I mentioned before, you see this groove inside? Oil will pass through this groove, so no matter what position that ring is on, there's going to be flow of oil anyway. So that goes on, and then you've got this gear. And on top of that, you've got the washer and your needle bearings. And there we go, it's all assembled. So, obviously same thing for this here, but I can tell already that all those dogs here look really, really good. None of them is rounded off. None of them is seriously damaged. And this transmission was shifting fine. There was no problem here. So that is it, fellas. This is how you split the engine in your Suzuki RF, and this is how you remove the gearbox. Thanks for watching. Till next time.